Don't tell my competitors that this is actually my secret on the Bass Pro Tour. I hide this. But if you touch the bottom, you're probably hung. Got one.
Well, I want to go for one.
It's a largemouth. Did you? Stay on there. I hope. Yeah. So I'm going to have my two dummies to where they're going to be, you know, as this thing's coming through the water, they're going to be on the top. I've got two with weight down here and the middle one with weight, you know, back there on the back. So that way it's coming through the water like that. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and the technique of the month video for February. This one is one that honestly I'm pretty excited to talk about, but I guess it's partially because it's highly illegal in professional fishing. So don't tell my competitors that this is actually my secret on the Bass Pro Tour. I hide this and I disguise it. I put an AI umbrella over it when I cast it, and then when it hits the water, it goes. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, no. The technique of the month this month, what we're talking about is the infamous Alabama rig. I enjoy fishing an Alabama rig. You know why? Because I don't know. I just like it. I enjoy catching fish on it. The way they bite it is really fun. It is a very aggressive bite most of the time, and I don't know. It can be a very fun way to fish. Fishing the best of the best this past year with Parker, we fished January, February, and March. And in the February tournament on Loudon, we came in second in that one and caught a couple of our keepers on an Alabama rig in that particular event. So I enjoy it. I like fishing. And again, a lot of it's got to do with just the way the bite is. You know, those fish, especially smallmouth, seem to hit it really, really hard, and that's something that makes it a lot of fun. We're going to go through. I guess I'll start with the setup. You know, the bait, the rig, kind of heads, and that kind of stuff that I use, and then we'll jump into exactly, you know, some of the places where I fish it and those type of things. So let's see. Let's start with the bait, actual baits, I guess, themselves. For me, that's going to be a Bass Pro Speed Shad. Usually that new Max Action Speed Shad, the 2.8, the 3.3. I'll occasionally use, you know, something a little bigger, the 3.8s or something, but usually one of those smaller sizes, the 2.8 and the 3.3. I feel like you're going to catch those fish on those little bit smaller baits, having so many of them. I just feel like you maybe get a few more bites and no less for size, truthfully. A 4, 5, 6 pounder is going to come after a school of bait fish that look that big, just like they are, you know, a little bit bigger bait fish in my opinion. But there's probably are situations where bigger baits are truthfully a little better. When the Alabama rig first came out, I used a lot of really big stuff on it. But one thing about it, you put a bunch of big baits on there, it gets hard to throw because it gets really heavy. So Bass Pro Speed Shad for the actual baits. The jig head, I'll use a little bit of everything. These are actually the VMC Redline, the little tungsten swim bait jig heads. Those are nice ones. They're really nice. The wire size in that hook in that Redline is really strong. One thing that's nice about those is that little plastic keeper. It's really easy to rig. It's really quick, but it holds the bait really well. You can glue it to there if you want to. So those are really, really nice jig head. I certainly understand if you don't want to be putting 3 of them on your Alabama rig. I completely get that. But that VMC, that boxer jig head is another really nice one. And if I am using the 3/8 or the 3.8 inch baits, I probably am using that boxer head. It fits that size swim bait a little bit better. It's got just a little bit, you know, a little bit bigger, a little bit longer hook in it and stuff. And honestly, for the 2.8 or the 3.3, that VMC hybrid swim bait head is a really good one. And it has a screw lock on it. So it takes a little bit more to get your swim bait on there perfectly. But once you do, it's there. It's going to stay really well. So jig heads, again, you've got options. You know, you can kind of pick your poison there a little bit. And this one is rigged up for fishing in Tennessee. Obviously, I've got 2 dummies, and then I've got 3 with hooks. And that's how I'm going to rig it's like that. So I'm going to have my 2 dummies to where they're going to be, You know, as this thing's coming through the water, they're going to be on the top. I've got 2 with weight down here and the middle one with weight, you know, back there on the back. So that way it's coming through the water like that. Your two dummies. There's, you know, some people will use those on a jig head and cut the hook off of them. It seems pretty wasteful to me. Just take you a screw lock, put it on there, run your bait up on it. And 2, you're keeping it lighter that way. So if you want more weight, you just use a heavier jig head. But that'll always allow that to orient, you know, the orientation of it to be correct coming through the water to where those are up on the top. For the actual Alabama rig, that's the Stealth Lures rig. You know, it's the invisible, you know, basically invisible rig. And not only, I mean, I like the fact that it's clear. I like the fact that it has that clear head on it. I like the clearness of it. What I like even more about that Stealth Lures rig is the fact that unless you lose this thing, you don't ever need another one. These arms, they're basically indestructible. I mean, you can catch, last year in that the best tournament, Parker and I caught several big stripers on them. And I think this was actually the rig that we were throwing. Like it was just as good afterwards as it was when we started. And I mean, these things literally you can catch hundreds and hundreds of fish on and not have any issue out of. So that Stealth Lures rig to me is the very best one out there on the market. Again, the clearness of it is a big factor, but just the fact that it is basically indestructible. That's why I like it so well. When you are storing it, store it like this. Take it, you've cut it off your line, hang it upside down. Don't lay it down in a box. Don't put it somewhere where those arms are going to get hot and get misshapen. You know, if you want to hang it upside down, and then that thing will be good for a long, long time. They've actually got some new ones coming that's got 8 blades on them and stuff too. But yeah, Stealth Lures rig is a good one. The rod, reel, and line setup for me is a Bass Pro Carbon Light rod. That's a 7.6 medium heavy. I don't like a super stiff rod for throwing an Alabama rig. Personally, I like something that's kind of got a little bit of a parabolic bend, because again, sometimes I'm not using a super heavy wire hook. You know, that hybrid swim bait hook isn't a really heavy wire hook. And so I like just a medium heavy action rod. When a fish bites, man, I just kind of start reeling and load the rod up. I'm not, really trying to drill the hook into them. And kind of along that same line, I'm throwing it on fluorocarbon. I like 20-pound test, the XPS fluorocarbon. Does the job for me with that medium heavy action rod. And then I do like a bigger reel, for this, just like I would throw like a big glide bait or something on. That's the Johnny Moore Signature Series reel. That's the size 30. Is what that one is, and a 6:8 to 1 gear ratio. So not too fast, but certainly not too slow as well. You got plenty of power with that. But that fluorocarbon line setup, in my opinion, with a medium heavy action rod, is the way to go. I get why people throw them on braid. If you get hung, you can get the bait loose. Oftentimes you can go up there and straighten the hooks out. So I get it if you want to throw it on braid. But for me personally, that's the setup that I personally like. All right, so a little bit about where you're actually going to fish an Alabama rig. It varies fishery to fishery. I've caught them on it out here in the river behind the house, in the wintertime. Obviously, Douglas, Cherokee, I've caught them from 20, 30 feet deep fishing it to, 3 or 4 feet deep. Down at Loudon, it's honestly, especially a shallower thing, and it's around more cover even. It's throwing it around laydowns, it's throwing it around rocky points, it's throwing it around maybe a deeper boat dock or something. Every fishery seems to be a little bit different as to where you want to throw it. But a lot of that stuff, wintertime, kind of early pre-spawn like this, I'm thinking of where those fish have been in the winter and the places where they're first kind of starting to slide up to here as we're getting in, getting into the start of February. So places that are, think of, you've got a main channel stretch of bank and you've got a place where the current hits really hard. That's not where you want to be. It's wintertime, the water's cold. You want to be where that has kicked out and it's making an eddy. It's making a big eddy. Those type of places on the main lake where you're, downstream of a current swept section of the bank. And a lot of that's not going to be your really steepest stuff. A lot of that real steep stuff is right where that current hits and, it kind of makes those banks really cut. Down below that, oftentimes, it may have, collected silt and stuff over the years. So what you're going to end up having is a place that's kind of flat that comes out, and then it ends up rolling out off the bank just a little bit. And a lot of that stuff I'm going to want to sit in 12 to 15 feet of water and making kind of a 45-degree cast, throwing my rig up to 3 or 4 feet deep and kind of fishing it along and off of that break, kind of coming down the side of that. That's oftentimes what I'm trying to do. And then finding any piece of cover, again, that's along that, be it a stump or it's a lay down or a piece of wood, maybe some isolated rock or something. But a lot of times it truthfully seems like it's wood. And I think that's just that's a factor of where those fish are. If those fish were right in the places where the current's really hitting, it would be rock because it would be exposed because of the current. This time of the year, you're more likely to find fish around a piece of wood because that's the kind of cover that's going to be in those type of places. It's not that the fish necessarily prefer the wood over rock right now, but they want to be in this location, and then that's the cover that's available to them. So just kind of keep that thought process in mind of you're trying to fish places, and I'm mainly talking like Tennessee River kind of stuff here. You're trying to fish places that are not getting hit really hard by the current, places that are downstream of that a little bit tucked in, a little bit out of it is oftentimes where that deal's going to be good. On a place like Douglas or Cherokee where current is maybe not quite as big of a factor, oftentimes it's about structure. It's about a point, or it's about fish that are congregated in a gut, or maybe they're just out around some bait and that type of thing. But getting that rig close to something is going to increase your chance at a bite drastically. It's a lot like fishing a glide bait anymore, where if you're just chucking it out in the middle, you're not really intersecting with a piece of cover at any point in your retrieve, your chances of getting bit are pretty slim. But if you're throwing this thing around, around some rock, around the corner of a dock, or you're just close to the bottom, that's really the strike zone. Those are the kind of places where, you're going to be able to generate a number of bites with it. So it's one of those kind of things that you've got 3 exposed hooks on there. You've got an investment in the rig. You got all that stuff. It's easy to try to be a little gun shy and keep it, plenty far away from anywhere where it could possibly get hung and have a chance of losing it. But honestly, that's not how you catch fish with it. You want to get right in that cover. And this is something that, forward-facing sonar is really nice to use with. For one, it shows up exceptionally well because it's big. But 2, you can really see the limbs, you can see the contour of the bottom, and you can watch the bait get down close to the bottom and let it get, just this high off of it, and then you can keep it right there without ever actually having to make contact with the bottom, because oftentimes contact means you're stuck with an Alabama rig. So it is a really nice thing to be able to use, forward facing with. So pretty deadly combination when you're doing that too. But it is a fun way to fish, something that, if they said on the Bass Pro Tour we were allowed to use, I wouldn't be mad about necessarily. But I get it. I get why we can't. So it is what it is. But when I'm fishing around home this time of the year, you can probably bet that I'll have one on the front deck of my boat. So Alabama rigs, technique of the month for February. Hope y'all get out up there on the water, go catch some big ones.